Hey guys, and welcome back to Ultra Game World. And today we are looking at a £1,250 build guide parts list. If you haven't checked out the previous videos that we've done at 500, 750 and £1,000 builds, then please go and check those out. Good build guides together there of parts that you could use and parts that you should buy for those different budgets. And today is the £1,250 build guide. So at this price we have got a little bit more leeway. Again, probably looking down the pre-built route, you would be able to potentially get yourself even an RTX 3070 at this price point. So it's something to bear in mind, that the higher you go with these sort of more higher end builds, kind of losing a little bit in this in today's market. You potentially are losing out to the pre-built. System builders can actually get all these parts a lot cheaper than you, and they're not being scalped or anything like that. They're getting them directly from the manufacturer to them and then building from there. Obviously they're making their profit as well, but their profit margin which they're making isn't going to be anywhere near as much as what the hike up in graphics cards is in like eBay and even on retailers now and what have you. So again, I know it sounds quite negative, and I don't want to be negative in this because I do want to try and encourage people to build their own PCs. This is what, you know, my passion is, and I think for a lot of people watching this, they have a passion of building PCs, or at least playing on gaming PCs and PC gaming. Even if you don't have passion with building PCs, then I do think if you are watching this, and I do think you have got a passion for PC gaming, or at least gaming in general. So yeah, let's take a look at what potentially we can get at £1,250 for our budget. Now we have got a little bit more extra that we can use, so we should be able to get ourselves some quite decent components here and a really well balanced and really good PC. So without further ado, let's crack on. So the processor we're going to use is the Ryzen 5800x. Now this is an 8-core and 16-thread processor, and on Amazon currently it's £360. Now this is quite a bit of our budget, but we are getting a really good processor here. You will need an aftermarket cooler. Ryzen 5800x is a fantastic processor. It's going to be fairly future-proofed, I would say. Not going to be able to, well, it depends whether the 6000 series you use the AM4, but they're probably not going to use AM4, they're probably going to go to AM5 socket, unfortunately. You're going to have 8 cores and 16 threads on a very new architecture now, which probably for the next, I would say, 2 to 3 years will be perfectly fine. Probably after then you might need to look at upgrading, but potentially with a processor like this you might even be able to get 4 years out of this, but I'd say certainly by then you would want to be looking at upgrading. Upfront cost, I do think it is worth it spending that more money on the CPU, because you will have performance down the road which you'll be able to get more from it if you do obviously upgrade your graphics card, because if you do upgrade your graphics card you will need a good beefy processor to kind of keep up with it, especially with the something like the RTX 3080. It's going to need quite a beefy processor to really keep up. Otherwise you're going to get a CPU bottleneck, and no one wants to have a really great graphics card with a CPU that's bottlenecking the performance and bringing it down, because it's just not going to be a good experience for you, and you've spent all that money on a very high-end graphics card and not getting the performance you need. So the motherboard we're going to use is the MSI B550-A Pro ATX board. Now this is actually about £105 on Amazon, a little bit pricey, but B550 is the platform you want to be on nowadays. You certainly don't want to be on a B450 if you can help it, because you are going to get the new features like the PCI Express 4.0 support. So obviously the new graphics cards that really use up that bandwidth are really going to need that. So I would highly recommend, if you can, get onto the B550 chipset. And MSI do great boards, so I've always brought MSI boards before and ASRock boards, but MSI have always been perfectly fine. I've always had no problem with them. B550A Pro is a perfectly good board. Could spend a little bit more and go for the Tomahawk ones or a little bit more fancy ones, but by the time you're sort of getting into 140, 150 sort of territory, I just think that you're kind of overpaying at that sort of price point personally, but it all depends on what you want. That motherboard is going to be perfectly fine, and you'll have a perfectly good time with it, so I wouldn't worry at all. I think that's a good recommendation. So yeah, I'm happy with that. So moving on to RAM now. We are having to kind of skimp out a little bit here on RAM. I would like to probably spend a little bit more and potentially even go up to 32 gigabytes. But 16 gigabytes is going to be perfectly fine. It's the kit that we used previously. It's a 3200 megahertz kit from Crucial Ballistix at £76. Perfectly fine. It's going to be perfectly fine. So the graphics card is the Gigabyte GeForce RTX 2060, which we used previously in our previous build guide, the £1,000. Now, this is £500 and it is a lot for a 2060, and I would look around the market as best as you can. Prices always change and availability always changes, so do your research before you purchase. If you look down the pre-built side, you probably will be able to get potentially an RTX 3070 at this price. You'll certainly be able to get an RTX 3060 at this price, so I do have a little bit of a hard time recommending this graphics card, but if you really want a graphics card and you want it new, this is perfectly going to be fine. Still a good graphics card, still going to be able to give you great 1080p experience. Obviously, the RTX side I wouldn't bother with. I wouldn't bother with ray tracing at this price point. I probably would just stick to 1080p with this card, but it's going to be perfectly fine for 1080p gaming for the next, I'd say, 2 years at least. And you're going to be perfectly fine. It's not the best card, but it's certainly going to do you. So for our storage, we've got a 1TB NVMe drive from WD. This is about £84 on Amazon currently, and again, storage is somewhere which you can cut corners if you need to. I would probably, if I was going to cut a corner anywhere on this build, I probably would go down to maybe 500 gigabytes NVMe and then just get myself a 1TB hard drive, or maybe even a 2TB hard drive. Storage is the one place where I probably would cut corners, and if you're going to cut corners, yeah, storage is the place. Now the PSU is the Corsair TX550M semi-modular unit at 550 watts, and on Amazon that's £60. So I think this is a good unit. This is a solid 80 plus gold unit. This is going to do exactly what you need it for. It's going to give you good quality power. Potentially the 2060 might need a little bit more power from a 550 watt, but you should be fine with a 550 watt. Certainly at this price point, try and get a gold PSU. If you have to spend even up to £100 on a power supply, I probably would. I would just get as good as you can get, as good as your budget will allow you to. Now the case is the Corsair 4000D Airflow. This is about £65 currently on Amazon, so it's a really good deal. You've got 2 fans of that. You've got the airflow at the front, so you've got a little bit of air coming through it. It's just a great case to build in, really easy. It's got great reviews, and it is just a great case. It's ATX, so ideally you do need an ATX board, but you can use an M-ATX board, but I would go ATX with an ATX case. It just doesn't look right with an M-ATX board, but it's still perfectly fine to use. So the build actually comes out at £1,248 and 85p. That's obviously without delivery, so you might have to pay extra delivery, but I do think that's a good build. I do think you're going to have a good 2 to 3 years gaming with that build, and you've got potential future proofing with the AM4 socket, and yeah, I just think it is a solid build. And if you do want to put that build, together, you certainly would have, you certainly would have an enjoyable experience with that computer. But obviously, again, I do say, do your research, try and find the best prices, maybe even look down the used market, and also look at pre-builts, because you are going to get more value with pre-builts. But again, not everyone wants to go down the pre-built route, and I understand that. So again, just do your research, do what's right for you, pick the components that's right for you, and just have fun, basically. At the end of the day, that's what it's all about, just having fun, playing the games that you want to play, buying the PC within your budget that you can afford. You obviously don't overspend and put yourself into any financial problems. That would be horrible, and no one wants that for you. So do your research, spend the money which you know you can afford, and like I said, have fun. So this is part 4 of the 5 parts of the build series that I'm putting together. I'm hoping you're liking these videos. Obviously, please leave me a like if you are, and please leave me a comment if you would change anything with these builds, or if you would go down the pre-built route, or whatever you would do to make a change to this build. I'd love to know. So please like, comment and subscribe, and I will see you in the next one. Bye guys.